Hey guys, this is Shermichael Singleton. Welcome to the Shermichael Singleton Show exclusively on YouTube. If you don't want to watch the video version of this because perhaps you're busy, you can download the audio version of this interview exclusively on Stitcher, which is a SiriusXM property, as well as Apple Podcasts and wherever else you download your podcast. You can also listen to the Shermichael Singleton Show every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. exclusively on SiriusXM Urban View, channel 126. And make sure as you follow the YouTube channel, you hit that notifications bell to get our notifications for upcoming downloads, as well as make sure you subscribe to our podcast station so that you can get updates to the future podcasts as they come. So I'm excited about my guest today. I've known this gentleman, a couple of years now, since 2018. And he and I have had the opportunity to discuss a plethora of things over the years, politics, education, et cetera. And I finally had an opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with him recently in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And I found out so many fascinating things about him and his life and his dedication to education, particularly with inner city youth, trying to give individuals who wouldn't normally have an opportunity to access a college education. Many are the first generation to go to college in their families. This is someone who tries to help them guide through that very, very complicated process when you're always number one, as many of these young people often are. And that relationship with those younger people continue throughout their matriculation through 4 years of college and beyond. And so I'm absolutely thrilled and excited to welcome my good friend, Scott West, to the Shermichael Singleton Show. Scott, thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, Shermichael, I'm really excited about this. It's crazy. You and I just met in person.
In person. After all of these years of talking back and forth.
And our communication was like me seeing you on TV and doing a home run interview, and me doing a shout out saying incredible interview.
That's
and
right.
Then we get to meet in person, and now I can see why you're expanding podcasts and TV and radio, because our visit was kind of transformative. Our experience together was tremendous, and I just want to thank you for that.
No, it was, Scott, and I'm not one to typically believe in serendipitous moments, but it certainly was one. I've met so many friends over the years that I have communicated with through writing personal letters or emailing or on social media. And finally, we're in the right place at the right time together, and we connect. And it's like, wow, we've dialogued with one another for years and never met. And finally, we met and we started doing business together, different projects together. And I can list several of those relationships that have fermented themselves into things that I never had imagined when me and the other individual first connected prior to. And so I'm excited about, our relationship and continuing our conversations that we've had over the years into new heights, into new levels. And when I was thinking about someone that I wanted to bring on the show following my first interview with Mark Chopper Manley, which I recommend that you guys listen to and watch on the Shermichael Singleton Show on YouTube and on Stitcher and Apple Podcasts. I said, Scott makes the most sense to me in the next chapter, the next iteration of where I'm going as I'm writing this book. And so I just want to thank you, my friend, for joining me. But Scott, for a lot of our viewers and listeners, they may have never heard of Scott West. So if you were to sum up who Scott West is to a new friend, how would you summarize yourself?
You know what? I'm an educator. Mm-hmm. I've been involved with diversity education primarily at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. And again, it was one of those serendipitous things that happened, like almost everything in my life. Our meeting, other kinds of meetings, and my career actually came out of nowhere. So I started at UW-Stevens Point, mm-hmm. and I was a PR marketing guy. My background is political science and education and communication. Those are my majors. And then I did something insane, Shermichael. I ran for the U.S. Congress, which you really have to be insane. I think I hit my head, maybe. I went momentarily crazy, and I ran for the United States Congress. I lost. I took 48% of the vote, and I came back to
twice.
Three times.
Oh, I didn't know it was a third time, Scott.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about it too much. But after 3 times of losing so closely or almost winning so closely, you just go, oh, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I need to do something else. So I came back to the university and I said, I want to be, they asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be the diversity enrollment coordinator. I want to recruit diversity students, non-Caucasian students to my university, which happens to be situated in one of the most white congressional districts in the United States. And they said, that's incredible, Scott, but we don't have that position. And I said, I know, that's why we're at 3% diversity. Think about that, 3% diversity across every demographic at my college. And they said, okay, it's yours, but when you can kind of create it, you can mold it. But there's another thing. And I said, what's that? And then they whispered, and I shared this with you, they whispered to me, and you're white. They whispered that. And I whispered back.
Not so obvious thing, right?
I know. I've been white my whole life. I mean, I am the most Caucasian man you will ever meet in your whole life. You know, Republican, German, Irish, Lutheran. That's pretty white. And so
I would say so, Scott.
and here's the exciting thing. They let me do it. And we went from 3% diversity to just recently 18% in a matter of no time.
And that's so incredible.
And it's a miracle. But you know what? It happens because we embraced this idea that if we're going to connect with this generation, especially this generation of students, we have to think differently. We have to think outside the box.
So Scott, let me stop you there. Let me ask you, let's go back, because I want to unpack this a little bit. You ran for Congress 3 times. You got really, really close. I mean, you're talking about a 2%, 3% margin of not being Congressman Scott West, or maybe you would have retired by now, retired Congressman Scott West. You were that close. You, because of the relationships you have had built during those campaign runs and the people who were backing you, you could have done anything. You could have got into business, investing, started your own shop. I mean, you could have gone in a lot of directions. Why did you feel it was necessary to say, you know, I want to go back to my alma mater and I want to focus on diversity and inclusion and giving opportunities to young people from underserved and underprivileged backgrounds? I mean, why that? Because some people may say, wow, this guy could have done everything. I mean, he had a silver platter. And he said, no, I don't want it. I'm going to go and do something more impactful.
Well, you know, and for a lot of people, that makes a lot of sense and good for them. I mean, that is their life. For me, in my family background, coming from educators and people who were really dedicated to church and family and community, man, for me, this was the most meaningful thing I could do.
Yeah.
The most meaningful thing I could do. So, I mean, something that I could look forward to going to in the morning and then leaving work at night, but you never really leave this job. So it really doesn't leave you, but at least you're leaving the office. And so for me, this was the most important thing I could do. This was even more transformational and meaningful than running for Congress. And so, again, for me, this was a God thing. The fact that I lost, which we don't want to talk about too much, the fact that I lost was a blessing. That was the blessing, because it allowed me to come back and get involved in the lives of kids. So
this is your purpose, is what I'm hearing from you, Scott.
It's become it has become my mission. And you know, as I work to help kids get a grip on their life and a purpose in their life, and to think through what are the next steps for them, oh man, I don't know who's winning more. It just comes back to me and changes my life and impacts my life in ways that I can't even talk about. I don't even know how. There aren't words to describe it.
And so, Scott, let's move forward a little bit here, because I really want to help our audience understand, and I'm fascinated with understanding this process and your thought process. You come to Washington, D.C., just this is just one particular place. You travel all over the country, but D.C. in particular. And you start going to some of these high schools, majority Black high schools. Most of these young people have never been outside of their neighborhoods or communities, let alone all the way to Wisconsin. Most of them have only been around people who look like them. Most of them would be the first in their families to go to college, and many of them would ultimately become the first to graduate from college. Many of them come from very impoverished backgrounds, broken families, not a lot of money. Explain to me how you said, this is where we start, and help me understand the trajectory of that journey.
So, first of all, you have to go where the students are. So that leads me to Washington, D.C., and that leads me to Milwaukee and Chicago and other urban areas. And the fact that I am white going into a school, first of all, that we're breaking all the rules, right? They're not
Right.
They're not expecting that a guy with white hair, we'll say middle-aged for now, middle-aged white guy with white hair is going to come in and care about them and want to help them figure out the purpose in their life. And so I kind of have like an advantage, to be honest, because I'm walking in, they're not expecting me, so all of a sudden they're interested. And they join me. They join me in auditoriums and classrooms. And we really have teamed up, for example, in Washington, D.C., with a lot of great schools that allow us to do this, that they understand this mission that we're on. And so I get to go in and talk to them about their lives. They challenge me, Shermichael, like you can't believe. It's like they think
I believe it.
We're going to get bonus points because they're Black or they're Hispanic. I get bonus points, right? I get a raise if it doesn't work that way. And so we get to go in and talk about the elephant in the room, and talk about how their lives are so critical. For their generation, it's so critical.
Yeah.
And they're not used to that, to be honest. They're just not used to that. We have, Shermichael, we have really done a number on ourselves as we have become more technology focused, as we have become more connected, we have become less connected. So in technology and in the classroom and Zooming like we're doing, we have really have done some damage, I think. And we have to think beyond that. We have to think differently about getting connected to these kids.
Now, before you continue on why you decided to work on these places, these urban areas, you said something really impactful. Technology has permitted us to be more connected than ever in human history, and yet we're disconnected. That seems to be, I don't know, hyperbole, if you will. Like, explain what you mean, Scott.
Well, think about this. Cigna Insurance did a survey, 20,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And they discovered that one of the biggest problems we have in our country, in our culture, and by the way, it's not just the United States, it's everywhere. But let's just talk about the United States. In our culture, in our country, we have a massive problem with loneliness. I'm talking like 50% of our people are feeling levels of high anxiousness, high anxiety. They're feeling lonely. They're feeling isolated, and they're feeling depressed. And yet, we're the most connected. We should not be lonely because we're talking to each other all the time on our phones. And then maybe that's the issue. But we're using technology to connect with each other, but we're not creating depth.
Yeah.
We're not creating depth. We're not doing a deep dive into each other's lives. So we're kind of just doing surfacey stuff. And so if we are really going to really connect with people, we have to create relationships.
And so
And that
how has that then, Scott, impacted the children and how they learn and retain information?
well, I think because we're not creating that depth. So that, the students are going into classrooms and they're using technology. During the pandemic, that's all we used, right? So that really sped up this process of anxiety and loneliness. By the way, this particular generation, we can identify them as the loneliest generation.
Wow.
So again, they're more connected than ever. They're more connected in the classroom with technology, but we're not going deep. We're not going deep into their lives. We're not connecting to them. And so they're not creating mentorships. We're not creating a level of trust that allows them to let us into their lives.
Yeah.
And so the technology, by the way, and I love technology. I think, but we need to really be using it differently. And we need to be thinking about ways that we can use technology to do a deeper dive, to maybe ask better questions, maybe to create better dialogues with people, better conversations, and often places where we probably don't want to go, because we're not used to it. It's a
And
little
so,
uncomfortable.
and I'm so glad you said that, because that gets us back to the original point you were making, going into places that may be uncomfortable for us, talking to people that we may don't not typically talk to on a regular basis, like these young people, for example. So you go before the classrooms, you go before these auditoriums, and these kids are like, whoa, okay, this guy's different. I definitely want to hear what he has to say, because I don't see someone like him every day.
Yep.
So you go in, you talk to them about, have you thought about college? What is that conversation like?
Well, first of all, I mean, the fact that I'm there is they're not expecting, number one. So that's throwing them off a little bit.
I can only
Two, the fact
imagine.
that I talk about that, the fact that I'm talking about me being a white person in their classroom, that's the first thing we talk about, is also something they're not expecting. They're expecting me to avoid that topic because race is it's a very challenging thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about it immediately, and that's what I do. That's like the second paragraph out of my mouth is we talk about race. We talk about me being a white person in their high school, and let's talk about that. Why would a white guy from Wisconsin be in Washington, D.C., talking to them in particular? And the answer is because we care about them. We want them to go to college.
Yeah.
And by the way, if they go to another college, that's okay with us. That's perfectly fine with us. But if we have a chance to get into their life and have them join us and have us be a part of their life through their educational experience and beyond, that's even better. So we talk about those things. And again, they're not expecting me to talk about race. They're not expecting me to talk about their lives in the way that I do, which is about which is about caring about them and being thoughtful about them and earning their trust and earning their belief in us, so we can make a difference, so we can guide them through all these difficult decisions they're about to make and all the difficult challenges they're about to face. How can we help guide them through that and equip them for that? And those are the things we talk about. So in other words, immediately we do the unexpected. We do a deep dive into their life and to say they matter. We're concerned about them, and those aren't just words. The fact that I'm here standing in your auditorium indicates that.
Yeah.
And now this is just the beginning. Now I have to take those next steps with you. And if you trust me, we'll take them together. And here's the exciting thing. Many of them do trust me. Whoever is saying these things, if it's coming from their heart, not just their head, but their heart, students, this generation will trust them.
Scott, let me ask you this question, not to cut you off. You look at a lot of stats for inner city youth, and the numbers don't always look good, particularly for Black youth when compared to other demo groups. What do you point to, or what do you think some of the problems are that result to the failures in education that we so unfortunately frequently see in many of our inner cities across our great country?
Well, I mean, if we take a look, let's first talk about the country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're looking at like one out of every three students, one out of every three people in this age group, this demographic, feel like they don't have at least one person in their life they can trust. That's
Mm.
incredible to me. One out of three
Wow.
don't have somebody they trust, that they can go to for anything. And if we go into the inner city, that number, I don't know the numbers on this one, but I can just imagine that that number increases dramatically. That
Yeah.
they don't have people they can go to that they trust, that they care about, that they feel care about them. These are all kind of soft topics: care, love, feeling. But man, I think it goes to the heart of the problem. We're lacking, and you and I have talked about this. We're lacking community. We're lacking community. And if we're going to change inner city education, if we're going to change education across the country, and by the way, it's spreading across the country. If we're going to change these things, then we need to build community.
And
You
what is
know,
that when you say that? What does that mean, Scott? What does that look like?
well, I mean, I'll use an example. Today, I went through Starbucks. Now, normally, I would go into a Starbucks, and normally I would have a barista who's very nice, take my order, a large caramel macchiato grant, by the way. So next time we see each other, and we would have a conversation. We would actually talk about coffee, or they would say, "Have a nice day," or "How is your day?" And I would sit in a room full of people, and I would actually probably invite some other people to join me. Now those same Starbucks lobbies, cafes, are they're not empty, but man, there are very few people in there like they used to be.
Hmm.
And where are they? They're in the drive-through.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're in the drive-through with cars wrapped around the block to get a coffee. That's indicative of what's happening in our country. Same thing.
Mm.
Just drive over to the McDonald's. No one's in the no one's in the dining room. They're in about 100 car line into the drive-through. We've disconnected from each other. And that's just not in the line at Starbucks, it's in the line at the classroom.
So thinking about that being disconnected, thinking about that idea. When you talk to these young people, you invite them out to Wisconsin. How many of them would you say on average actually decide to say, hey, I'm going to come to this institution? And how many of them actually matriculate through the institution? And how many of them do you stay in touch with? I know that's sort of a three-pronged approach question.
Well, I can tell you the first year, which isn't too many years ago, where I made my way to Washington, D.C., and connected with a bunch of high schools, some amazing high schools, I have to add, some who are doing great stuff. Man, that first year, I recruited 23 students to the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. And that's amazing. In the world of higher ed, if you go into a new market like Washington, D.C., if you get 5 kids, I mean, that's like a home run.
Yeah, I'm
We
glad
had
you're putting that into perspective so the audience can see like, wow, that's actually really substantial and significant.
It's gigantic. I mean, and everyone is surprised. Our schools in DC are surprised. University of Wisconsin Stevens Point was surprised, and then we had a number of years like that, where we were getting those kinds of numbers, to the point where we would actually renting a coach bus to go out to Washington D.C. At one point 2 buses to bring students back to Wisconsin, so we would not endanger people driving all the way to Wisconsin and putting that extra expense into their lives. So our success rate was pretty high. It was very high. When they get to UW Stevens Point, of course, there's a gigantic cultural learning curve.
I'm sure there is.
I mean, because people, and by the way, if you ever come to Wisconsin, one of the first things you learn, and by the way, I'm raised in St. Louis. If you come to Wisconsin, the first thing you know is people are overly friendly, to the point where our DC students say, what do they want from me? What are the strings attached to that friendliness?
Yeah.
And then they learn that, they just want to kind of know you, and they want to build a friendship with you. So there is a kind of a steep learning curve, but when they get through that, they end up staying here. The only time I've seen students not stay here, and this is, I was thinking about this today. The only times, or the majority of the time, when people leave us, it's not because of something here. It's something happening back home, a tragedy back home, and a challenge back home, that they have to go and support their families. They have to be a part of the support mechanism of their family. But for the most part, our students are pretty successful. And matter of fact, in this town, in Stevens Point, we probably have 4 or 5 students from Washington, D.C. who have made this their home.
So Scott, and thinking about the success of those students, those who have stayed, but the majority who actually graduate, matriculate through University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. What do you think this example exudes for some people who may say, these kids can never amount to anything? Look at the communities, all the violence, the drugs, the gang banging. It's a waste of time to even think about, giving these kids an opportunity to go to college. What do you say to those people? Because there's a pretty large chorus of those individuals in our country who just say, I see this stuff on TV all the time. Yeah, not even worth our time.
Well, I would say the solution to fixing this is hard and easy at the same time. The concept is easy. It may be difficult to make happen, to implement, but when we do it, miraculous things, incredible things happen. So I mentioned earlier our lack of community. So this group that we're talking about, they feel disconnected. They feel like they're not part of a community. They don't feel like they have a chance or an opportunity to care for others. They lack purpose. All of these things are happening, not just in the inner city, but they're happening across our entire country. But let's just focus on the inner city. Mm-hmm. So when those systems that have been in place that allowed for community building, allowed for family connection, allowed for mentorship of young men and women in our world, in our communities, when those systems fail, our students, this demographic, go out searching for other things. Mm-hmm. They go out looking for other systems and other ways to build community that aren't healthy, that aren't meaningful, that aren't thoughtful, and don't allow them to create a really significant purpose in their life. So they go out looking for systems, different systems, and they're not good ones.
Yeah.
And so somebody, us, you and me, mm-hmm. Our leaders in our community have to really start focusing on building that relational authority with this population group. And that means being honest. It means listening. It means really genuinely caring. Man, it's crazy. When we do those things, watch things happen. Incredible things happen in the lives of students.
Let me ask you this. You talk about these incredible things. You talk about a lack of purpose, yearning for a sense of community. What do you think is the greatest aspiration for many of these young people, Scott? And you've encountered so many of them. You and I talk regularly, and you tell me about many of them when they meet their girlfriend, if it's a guy, or a young lady meets her boyfriend and say, Scott, I just met someone, I'm engaged now. You're one of the first people they want that person to meet, in addition to maybe their mother or other important members of the family. So you become a substantial part of these young people's lives. And so you've had an opportunity to really see the ins and outs, if you will. And so with that experience, with that empirical observation, what do you think is the greatest aspiration of many of them?
Well, I think, man, it's an easy one. And it's not career at this point. It's not career. It's not making money. It's not any of those things that we think might exist in their
Sure.
lives. It's being cared about.
Wow.
It is
So
that,
just that, something that simple. That's
because
that's it.
that's the launching point. That is the launching point, because when they feel cared about, then they trust you. They trust people to come into their life and help guide them through all the other stuff, the junk that's in their life, where they can come to you and say, hey, I have this idea about my major, or I have this idea about my job, or hey, Scott, I think I'm falling in love. I want you to meet her or him. Or will you officiate my wedding? All those things that I've been allowed to do, that they've let me into their life, can happen with anybody and everybody, and should be happening with anybody and everybody. Can I just tell you a quick story?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
The day we had lunch that evening, I got together with a student who is now finishing his last year of law school, his last semester of law school. This is a young man, Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C., graduate. And a few years ago, Shermichael, I broke my ankle. And I went out to Washington, D.C. with a cast and with crutches. And I'm crossing a bridge over a highway near Hyattsville, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And I must have looked like a mess. I'm sure I did. I'm confident I looked terrible. And I have a gigantic backpack on, and I have the crutches. And this young man out of nowhere comes up to me and says, excuse me, sir, football player, can I help you? Can I help carry all your things? I said, well, actually, I'm going all the way over there. But if you're willing to do it, that would be really nice of you. I'm happy to do it. And we introduced ourselves to each other. And all the way from across that bridge, across a parking lot, another parking lot to the restaurant, we finally get there. And in that time, I discovered that he was a football player from Dunbar, that he wanted to go into political science. I knew that he came from a single parent household, and he just bought a new pair of tennis shoes. And so across that, and he was looking for a college. And he had been admitted to a couple, but still hadn't made his mind up. We exchanged this information. By the time we got done with appetizers, he sent me his football tapes. By the time we got done with the main course, my football coach had watched his tapes. And by the time we got done with dessert, they had talked to each other. And 4 days later, we got him admitted. He came to University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. And it took a couple years longer than we anticipated. Not a problem. We can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But he was on the right trajectory. And he graduated from UW-Stevens Point, came back to DC, became a part of DC government, and also worked in a congressional office. And now is finishing his last semester of law school.
Incredible.
Now, this is a young man where others said could not be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Could not be successful. And man, is he being successful,
Scott,
in so many ways.
I must say, as we come to a close here, one of my favorite quotes from one of my mentors, Dr. Larry Lewis, once told me, only those who dream the impossible can make the impossible commonplace. And when I think of you, and when I thought about wanting you to be a guest on the Shermichael Singleton Show on YouTube and podcasts, and we're going to have you on the SiriusXM radio show soon as well, I thought, I want to talk to people who are making the impossible commonplace. Being in media, every story I talk about, Scott, is so negative. Everything is doom and gloom and death and how poor the economy is and tribalism and racial disparities of groups not being able to talk to one another because of outward differences. No one willing to sit down and say, yeah, there are some differences, but we're going to talk about them and we're going to overcome them and we're going to move on together. Nothing positive. It just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. And so I have committed myself to saying, I want to have tough conversations, challenging conversations, but I only want to talk to people who believe in making the impossible commonplace. And my friend, when I think about these stories and I think about your dedication, I think you're doing that. And I think the impact that you're having on these young people's lives from these inner city communities, and then they're coming to Wisconsin and they're being put into places that don't look like the communities that they're used to. And they're meeting people and they're thinking, oh my God, why are these kids so nice? Why are these professors so nice? And to the point that you said in the interview, because they just really want to get to know you. They want to help you matriculate. They want to build new friendships. I just can't imagine the impact that's having on young people who, by any stretch of the imagination, statistics would say that they're going to end up on drugs or in a gang or dead or in prison. And yet you're helping them defeat the odds, making the impossible commonplace. It's really, really incredible. So as we close, I want to give you the final words, my friend.
Well, here's the final word. It begins and ends with us. It begins with and ends with us. And we're reaching out to young people and reaching out to this demographic. Man, just reaching out to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are missing, and I'll say it one more time, only one more time, community. We're missing that connection. We're missing appreciation of each other, not just race, because that's part of who we are, right? Mm-hmm. It's part of who we are, and what an incredible blessing that is. But what about all the other stuff that make up who we are?
That's right.
We all have to invest in doing just a little deeper dive into each other's lives and saying, you matter, you care, I care. Wow. When we do that, we change lives. And we change 100%. The direction of our country and education.
Scott, for people who are watching this and listening to this, if they're interested in the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, where can they go to find more information?
Well, the best place would just go to our website, uwsp.edu. I would click on that admissions button, because it's the admissions button that will give you all the information you need. And we'll that'll be your launching point into the rest of the website. And, again, it's not just Wisconsin. There are universities all over the country that are just waiting. They're just waiting for people to take advantage of what they're offering. And so thank you.
Well, I appreciate you. This is Shermichael Singleton. You're watching and listening to the Shermichael Singleton Show on YouTube, and also wherever you download your podcasts, on Stitcher and also on Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure you check out the show on TheHub.news, a YouTube channel as well. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Shermichael_. You can also find me on Facebook. That's Shermichael Singleton. I am verified on all platforms. So if you type Shermichael Singleton and you see that blue check mark, that's me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what did you think about this interview with Scott West. I'm curious. I think, as Scott said, if we work together and if we show one another that you matter, you may look different. That's okay. Your background may be a little different. That's okay. But at the end of the day, you matter. I matter. And if we can learn from each other and overcome the differences, oh my goodness, just imagine what we can do as a society and as a country. The onus is on us. The question is, are we willing to put in the work? I'm Shermichael Singleton. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks so much for watching. Take care until next time.